Hello people, and today I'm going to be doing PS Vita stuff. I definitely don't have an awkward setup right now, and the camera's really annoyingly constantly not being particularly willing to focus, and yes, I'm not really sure how on earth I should set this up. Now, let's try and turn it on. Does it need charging? No, there it is. So I should probably explain that this is a non-slim model. This will make a lot of sense when I'm going to do some stuff. Now, I think the first thing I've got to do is get it connected to Wi-Fi. So let's do that. And then you can probably guess what I'm going to do immediately after. Jailbreak. Okay, so I've now got it connected to the internet. Now, I just checked. I'm on 3.65, and the tutorial on on VTax guides is telling me to update. So let's do this. So I'm giving it a software update, and then we'll move on to the next instructions of the guide, which is available at vita.hacks.guide. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Here we should be here. That's not particularly English, but whatever. So I think there are other options. I think there might be like a way to get tweaks immediately from here, and then we move on to here. App downloader. Yes, please. And yeah, I just mostly want PKGJ. Which is, if you've ever used a PS3, it's basically like PKGI. And here we go. Let's get some stuff installed onto here. I could also try and sort out the SD to Vita. There we go. There are now games. So now I've got games available to download at my will. I could install games, but I think what we really should be doing is SD to Vita. So let's take this up. Now there's an SD to Vita in here, and I currently cannot use it because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so I think that 64 gig micro SD card was dying. I've had problems with it before, but I didn't particularly want to use the one that I've put in, but it's not that much of an inconvenience. The one that I've put in is 256 gigs, so yeah. Okay, turns out I'm having one of those moments where I just completely ignore the instructions. Wow. I've got PS Vita edition installed of Minecraft. And why is Aria Math playing in the menus? I love Aria Math, but why is it playing in the menus? Yeah, I've got the SD to Vita working. Just turns out I'm a massive idiot. So I've got Minecraft installed, and I'm actually installing Undertale as well, which, yes, was officially released on the Vita, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. It released in 2015. the game initially, but I think, you know, it was ported like in like 2017. And yeah, the Vita still was live then. Now, I think it's time we do some homebrew. Now, I'm not actually sure how to necessarily install homebrew stuff onto it, but you can always try. I'm going to connect it to my computer. Sort of needs a bit of charge here as well. Yeah, so I want to get like Classic Cube and what is installed. So it's been a while since I filmed the last clip, and well, I've basically done quite a bit of things. So first off, I've organised the home screen so it's a bit less messy. I've also some apps. I've logged into PSN, and yeah, let's sort of showcase what I've got. So I've got Adrenaline installed, which is basically the PSP menu thing. Excuse me. This is basically what you want if you want to play PSP games. Now, it's probably not immediately apparent to you on camera, but it really annoys me that the resolution of the PSP doesn't quite match the PS Vita. I'm not sure what resolution the PSP is, but it's lower, so like stuff sort of looks a bit sort of pixelated. So there's that. Also, for some reason, it won't let me navigate using the joystick, so I've got to do that. But yeah, I do really like the X and B menu. It's just annoying me though, the fact that the resolution doesn't match. And then also, if I'm being honest, I'm not actually a massive fan of the font that's used on the PSP X and B. Yeah, I much prefer the PS3 X and B. So yeah, I'm not necessarily sure how you're supposed to exit apart from doing exactly what I just did then. Now, there are also games, obviously. Now, I've installed quite a little bit of games. Well, okay, I would say quite a bit. A handful of games would be more accurate. So I've got some homebrew stuff. I basically wanted to get some ports of games up and running. And as you can see, I've got some installed. However, I've only actually managed to get one of them working, and that is Beloutro. So if I press this, it will launch. It takes a little bit to launch, but it does launch, unlike the other games. Now, I didn't realise this, but there is an extra step to getting the game to run than what I thought. So basically, Beloutro is made in this engine, 2G game engine called Love, and basically it sort of behaves like a universal binary thing. Basically, if you have Love installed, the game engine, you can just do Love and then a game executable. So even though on Steam it claims itself as an exe, in reality it's a .love file, and it's basically the executable for the game. And if you do like Love Beloutro.love or Beloutro.exe as it would technically be called, you can run the game basically natively. But however, there is a patch that you do need to do on the Vita in order to actually get it to load, and I was struggling with that. But yeah, Beloutro works. I don't know how to play Beloutro, so admittedly it's kinda not that particularly interesting to me. There we go. I got World of Goo working. Let's go. This is a game that I do actually own legitimately. I own it on GOG. Also, I think I have it on Epic Games as well. So, even though I technically performed an act of the P word, oh well, I've done it. I have actually given them money, and I think it's ethical. There you go. Feel free to have an argument with me about how that's not the case. So I've now got 2 ports of games that are working. I guess you could technically argue Classic Cube support, but I mean, does this really count? It's an open source Minecraft classic clone, and it runs just as well as you'd expect. Moonlight is a local game streaming platform, and it does look a bit ridiculous because I had this set up so the F3 menu was always showing, although it kind of works because the controller glyphs sort of show up where it is. Yeah, I don't really like this control mod. I think it's Controlify, right? And the other one's Midnight Controls. I prefer Midnight Controls because it works a lot more like the console edition of Minecraft. But yeah, and I don't know how you trigger. Yeah, I think one of these is going to be the F3 menu. I don't know. I know you can customize it. It's been a couple of months since I last filmed a clip from this, and I'm going to now do more of a general discussion of my thoughts on the PS Vita. So, firstly, I have actually installed the ports that I was failing to install last time. It was just me not doing a good job at reading any instructions. But yeah, as you can see, I've got Hollow Knight open, but once again I've got other games I've installed, such as Geometry Dash, and Geometry Dash runs perfectly fine. In fact, it runs, it works, and so on. Now, I say that, but it does have issues with more intense levels. The only real Rob Top level that fits that requirement though is Dash. So if I do Dash, it will just be laggy. Right there, yeah. So I've also imported my data from my account onto here, so I've got like the completions, although this was from like a week ago, so it's already quite outdated because I've completed like 2 Rob Top levels since then. But yeah, and then yeah, there's some more games that have been ported over. I'm not going to go too much detail in them because I think this video's already kind of long, although I think Hill Climb Racing's worth pointing out, and the reason why I didn't try it was simply because it hadn't actually released this port of it when I first filmed this. This released back in like mid-November, and I filmed like the last clips back in October. But yeah, Hill Climb Racing, you know the rules. It's just like that, and it works. Amazing. Now I'm going to do more of a general talk about things. So there is a mod for the PS Vita edition of Minecraft, and it adds a bunch of things such as the more obvious stuff, such as just like new textures, but it backports some of the stuff from the Nether update, and it increases the world size from the 864 by 864 to 1024 by 1024. I think I'm going to try that in a different video to show it off, because this video is taking way too long to make, mostly because I've just been so busy and distracted and so on. Now, I spent about 80 quid on this in total. Now, I'm not including the SD card because the SD card I bought that's in here was not intended for the Vita, but that would probably be maybe like 20, probably not even 20 quid these days. It's a T56 Sandy, and yeah, the SD to Vita was a couple quid. And also, I should probably point out, this has actually got a case. Now, I would say I've been mildly disappointed by this case, because it was sort of advertising as metal, and I mean, it's got a metal front, but literally everything else about it is plastic. So yeah, and also it's already snapped into 2 parts, the back bit as well. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a great case, but yeah. And well, to answer the question of was it worth it, I think the honest answer, it's no. 80 quid for this, for a console that is considered a commercial failure. I mean, as you've seen, it does have quite a nice range of homebrew games. I mean, Geometry Dash is absolutely killer port for me. But the real reason is I've not really used it like a month after I got it. And I just didn't use it. And I think part of the problem is the fact that the Geometry, all of the Android ports, so that includes Geometry Dash, don't have online access. And well, Geometry Dash not having online access means like my save data isn't able to be synced up with Steam. Like I can't log into my account. And because of that, I just have to like drop it in manually whenever I have to, and that's just not very good. The other thing I guess I could criticise it for is, well, the controls. Like, wow, on the back there's a massive touchpad thing, but who cares? It's pretty much just a useless gimmick, and instead of the touchpad, I would just rather have shoulder buttons, which turns out there are like cases you can get with like the extra shoulder button, trigger buttons, whatever you want to call those. But yeah, and also don't forget the analog sticks aren't buttons either. They're just stiff and useless. So you're losing on basically 4 buttons from one of these, for example. For what benefit? I don't know. I do find it just really weird. At least it has an extra stick compared to the PSP, but it just doesn't seem like it's a good deal. And once again, do I need to just remind you, it's 2026 by this point. And well, also another thing that kind of sucks is because it's from 2011, it doesn't use USB-C. Obviously the Slim uses micro USB, but this, the non-Slim, uses its own proprietary connector, which, to be fair, I don't mind that much. I think the connector's quite rigid and strong, but it does mean if I lose the cable, the single cable I've got for charging it, I'm going to have to wait a few days if I order it from online, because you're not going to be able to buy it in person because it's an incredibly niche console when it released, in a way, because it was kind of a commercial failure, but also the fact that it now going on to being 15 years old. Well, technically it released in I think December or November in Japan, but whatever, you get my point. Now, I've said why you shouldn't get this, but that's not particularly useful if I didn't give you a good recommendation of what you'd buy instead. And if I'm being honest, I think the honest answer is just get some random Android phone, yeah, like this for example, and then get a controller. Now, I don't know where my Kishi is exactly. Actually, I think I do know where it is, but I'm going to just use this as an example. Now, I bought that phone for 80 quid back in 2023. You could probably get it for slightly less now. And you can buy one of these. I bought this for like 20 quid. Boom. You've got similar functionality to a Vita for a similar price, but now you can run Android games with network access and so on. Now, I would say, instead of getting a DualShock 4, I would just recommend getting like a Razer Kishi, or I think it's called like a Backbone 1. Just a controller you can snap on 2 sides. And obviously I wouldn't not necessarily recommend the Razer phone specifically for this, even though gaming was its intended audience. It's from 2017. There are probably some better value options, but I still think get an Android phone, get a controller thing that goes into the sides, and you've got a better deal. And also, don't forget, these days you can run Steam games using Peluvia. I think there's another one as well to run Steam games. And now, yes, there is the problem of the Steam games you can run on here basically are going to have to fall into the category of games that are quite basic and lightweight that you could easily emulate on here if you want to play Steam games like that weren't released for like Android or mobile in general. And really there's not that many examples of the games that I'd say fall into category, although I think Celeste would be a good example of one that does fall into that category. But yeah, I just think buy an Android phone, it's cheaper, it's better value, don't bother with the Vita. As I do really like the form factor of the Vita, I must clarify. And obviously, it having an OLED screen, it feels premium, don't get me wrong, but as I said, it kind of a weak console. I mean, it's literally, this phone's way more powerful than the Vita. And in fact, you could emulate a PS Vita on Android. I haven't tried it specifically on this phone, but it's not like the Vita's necessarily going to be a hard to emulate device, and it probably runs quite well considering this is an ARM device. So bear that in mind, I'll just go with an Android device. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more videos you can subscribe. I have a couple of videos planned, such as showcasing the process of getting my new PC set up and ready. There's also a video that I'm working on where I'm setting up a computer to use as a media center box for the TV, and there'll probably be more interesting videos along the lines of that in 2026. So hopefully you enjoyed watching, and goodbye. Are these the world's most amazing videos? Let's find out.